I am so happy to be saying this. Well, hello, General Hospital Daily Recap fans. Today's daily recap is for Friday, October the 3rd, 2025. I have missed GH, even though you could tell this was not a Friday episode, but it was an episode. Okay, let's dive right into it. It was really good. Alexis gets off her phone call. She thought she heard something, and when she turned, she didn't see anything. And I thought, okay, she just lays down on her couch, puts her feet up, and Rick comes up from behind with the dagger. So, guess whose fingerprints are all over that dagger? Rick's. He has it up to her throat, and oh, got her up, and she goes, "What are you gonna do, Rick? You know, you're not gonna kill me." He goes, "There's a whole lot of things I want to do to you." She goes, you know what? Molly really wouldn't like it if you killed her mother. And he looked, he goes, "Oh no, you are going to call the police, and I'm gonna take great pleasure watching them haul you and your daughter away." She goes, "Oh, don't forget, you're going to be right behind us because you're in just as deep, Rick." And he goes, at this point, I don't care being held captive for weeks down there. He goes, "I need a shower." And I'm thinking, you're stinking. You need your clothes changed. You needed a sponge bath. Come on now. At least every other day, girls. So anyway, um, he says, give me my phone. She says, "I don't have your phone." He says, "Then use your phone." And he has her call Elizabeth, right? Now, Elizabeth is with Molly. Molly came to pick up some paperwork that the DA's office asked, medical records they asked GH to prepare. And Elizabeth gave her the folder. And before Molly left, Elizabeth says, "Molly, have you talked to your dad at all?" She's like, "No, I guess he's taking this digital retreat thing seriously, right?" She goes, "Yeah, but it's so unlike Rick. I just knew that he would have, at least broke it by now and contacted you." Or Molly says, "Or you," right? And she goes, "Can you think of anyone else he might call?" And Molly says, "No, I believe it'd be one of the two of us." Well, Elizabeth's phone rings, and she's like, "Hello?" And she goes, "No." Alexis's name popped up in caller ID. And she goes, "Huh, it's your mom." So she answered it, "Hello." And Rick is like, just as Elizabeth says hello, Ava comes up and throws hot coffee in his face. And he's like, "Ah!" And Alexis hangs up the phone real quick, right? And then he's like, "Ah!" And he's looking around, and he's, getting ready to try to lunge for either, I think, Alexis. And Ava takes whatever plank thing she has, flat board, whacks him. She's good at clocking Rick on his head with something, right? Knocks him right out. Alexis immediately texts Elizabeth saying, "Sorry, accidental dial," right? And so Elizabeth says, "Oh, look, she's saying, oh, it's an accidental dial." So she goes, "But Molly, I could have sworn I heard your father's voice in the background." And Molly says, "Hmm, what would be the odds that my father, if he's going to break the digital retreat, that my mother is the first person he'd go see?" And Elizabeth looked at Molly. She goes, Yeah, you're right. Because that's very unlikely, right? So the next scene it shows Ava and Alexis plopping Rick's knocked out body on that gurney again. And Ava this time had handcuffs in her pocket. Now, what made her think after 3 weeks that now she needed to bring some handcuffs versus 2 days in to this, right? So they handcuff him to the bed now. Well, Alexis says, for a man that's been drugged every day, Rick was very, very coherent. And Ava says, really? Because I gave him a pill right before I left. So Ava's feeling around the mattress edge of the cot and she finds his stash of pills. And Ava counts them, and Alexis counts them, and she says, "This is 10 days worth of pills that he has not taken. He has been plotting and working on that tape for his escape for 10 days." So Ava's like, yeah, well, and I think that's when she took out her pocket, the handcuff. She goes, good thing I got these now. And Alexis is like, good, right? So Rick wakes up and his face is all scorched pink from the hot coffee being thrown in it. And he's like, you two, I'm gonna get you I'm gonna get you. And they go, now there, Rick. So Ava takes another pill. He goes, no, 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 no. She goes, no, no, you gonna take this. She throws it in his mouth. She goes, Alexis, cover his nose. No, 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 don't cover my nose. So Ava throws it down his throat. And she goes, now swallow it this time. And I thought, my goodness, ladies, give him some water. I personally, I have never been able to swallow a pill without some kind of liquid. I just can't swallow Tylenol fresh out the bottle, Benadryl fresh out the bottle, Sudafed, any allergy, no kind of pill or capsule can I take without liquid. I start to gag. It like sits in the back of my throat, right? But some people I know, they just take it on, pop it, and they all about their business. So anyway, this time, and Ava says, now say ah, and he's and she says, good. And she told him, she goes, the money you stole is going back into Ace's estate. And Ava said, Alexis is telling him that. She goes, of course, minus my divorce settlement, of course. It may have been Ava telling him that because that money was that was mine. And he's just, so Alexis takes the ball gag and she says, Ava, do you want to? She goes, no, no, you do the honors. And he goes, no, no, no. They put the ball gag in his mouth. Now, the thing about the handcuffs, Rick could still make a lot of noise with them handcuffs. That's going to be interesting. Clank, 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 right? Molly could come down and say, what on earth is making that noise? But we'll see. I mean, we probably won't see Rick for another 10 days. But I like the way Rick got out and Rick got captive again. And what Ava said, she goes, see, Rick, when you got loose, you should have ran away. You'd have been free right now. But no, you had to get revenge. That's how you are, Rick. And he's just looking because he would have gotten away. Alexis was laying on the couch. Ava came back because Alexis says, "Oh, not that I'm complaining, but why did you come back?" And Ava said, "Oh, I left something, whatever she said she left. That's why she came back. But what she left wasn't down in the basement with Rick. She would have came and picked up what she needed to pick up, and neither one of them would have known Rick was missing. But guess what? Rick ricked himself, right? Now then we had Britt. Now I 100% know Britt knows that's not Nathan. That's either a clone or they revived his body for sure. Mentally, that's Faison. It is in his son's body. Because remember, Faison he needs a younger body and one without Huntington's. So I'm kind of thinking that that is Faison's memories. Now, Nathan's may still be there somewhat. You know how Faison he always wished he had a son, which was one reason Obret had her sister raising Nathan, because she did not want Cesar to corrupt Nathan. Faison never had much use for a girl, and he treated Britt that way. He wanted a boy. So, wasn't Peter August his son? I guess he didn't like Peter, right? Heinrich? He didn't like him because he had a son, Peter, and Peter August and Nathan are brothers. So anyway, what caught me as strange is, they bring James there, and Britt was saying, I really don't think he should see him. I think you need to work with a child psychologist and get some advice and tips on how to introduce them. And Felicia's like, well, I see what you're saying. And Obret is like, I don't see what she's saying. Nathan wants to meet James, and James is here. He obviously wants to meet his father. There is no psychologist needed for that. And she goes, yeah, I mean, do you think Maxie would want James in this situation to just, boom, be brought into the room without some kind of, consultation first? And Spinelli said, you know what? I see what Britt is saying, and I actually agree with her. And Felicia says, you know what? I do as well. What's the harm? And Britta says, I can get you a list of very qualified child psychologists. And old Britt looked, she goes, as can I. Right? And she's looking at Britta like, what is your problem? And so Spinelli says, because they had sent James to the vending machine, Britta gave him $5 to go get himself a soda. And Spinelli said, all right, James, you know what time it is, right? He goes, yeah, so you know what that means. Decaffeinated, no caffeine. He goes, yep, no soda with caffeine in it at this hour. So anyway, James goes to the vending machine and they're talking. The adults are talking. So now Spinelli says, now, you know what? I'm going to have to break the news to James that he's not going to meet his father tonight. And Britt says, you know what? I do not mind breaking that news to James. I would be happy to do it. And Liesl says, of course she would. She loves being the bearer of bad news. And Britt just looks at her mother. And so they said, wait a minute. Where is James? He should have been back by now. Well, little James was walking in Nathan's room. And Nathan is looking at him. And he goes, James. Hello, James. And I'm thinking, yeah, that ain't Nathan, right? And he goes, hi. And he walks in. He has a grape soda and a cherry soda. And he says, I brought you a soda, but I didn't know what you liked. I bought, I said grape and cherry. It's orange. I bought grape and orange. And he goes, because I like grape and orange. And Nathan says, what do you know? I like grape and orange soda too. And James is like, really? And Nathan says, and little James says, I like orange slightly more than I like grape. And so Nathan says, and I like grape slightly more than I like orange. So James says, well, here's your grape soda. So they've poured it into glasses, half in the glasses, and they're sipping. And I guess they had decided to do a taste test. Which tastes better? So they said, okay, now you've tasted the grape and I've tasted the orange. Let's switch. And James says, we probably should drink a little water first. Like to cleanse the palate. He didn't say that, but and I thought, I love little James, so precocious. So Nathan says, yeah, you're right. Now, what struck me as interesting, Nathan's loved Maxie. Loved Maxie. Meeting he and Maxie's son for the first time, he would have said something like, I see your mother in you. Or I am so sorry to hear that your mom is sick. He would have brought up Maxie to James. You have your mother's eyes. Something. Her nose, her lips, her son. He would have been looking for the love of his life in James. All this guy is doing is, this is my prodigy. This is my seed, my downline, my lineage. Forget about the mama. And that's the way they were. Forget about the mama's input, right? But what was so funny is, and when you think about it, because I thought a lot back on James, Nathan and Maxie, they grew to truly love each other. Nathan made Maxie be a better person. He would stop Maxie from her worst impulses. But Maxie would have a tendency not to want to tell Nathan 100% the truth of what she was doing, because she knew it would not live up to his high standards. So, yeah, they became, especially once she got pregnant, because Maxie was good and pregnant when Nathan was killed, 9 months pregnant. They were truly a loving couple at that point. But it was bumpy along the way because Maxie was always doing some stuff, right? So anyway, that was just interesting to me, that whole interaction. And Britt was standing outside the door of Nathan's room with little James, because they looked around, and of course they found James in Nathan's room. And oh, Lisa was just, see? And she goes, Oma, his favorite sodas are orange and grape like mine. She goes, well, of course they are. Oh, she's just over the moon with it. And Spinelli is looking, and Felicia, they're watching and monitoring this. And look, it was almost over at that point, but Spinelli leaves the room. And Felicia, she follows him. She goes, Spinelli, is everything okay? He says, I have to admit, I'm a bit jealous. I'm a bit envious that Nathan is back because I have been James's de facto dad and I've loved it. And she goes, and now that his real father is back, you feel like he's, you've been replaced. And she goes, Spinelli, he loves you and he's always going to love you, And he goes, you know, I don't know. He says, and he's looking over at Britt post up at the door with the sour face on. He goes, there's just something. She goes, I can't put my finger on it. I can't explain it, Felicia. He said, but I fear something is not right here. That it isn't what it seems to be. And I just don't know. And she just looked at him, right? And I think, yeah, your spidey senses is tingling, Spinelli, right? Trust them. On top of the fact that Britt is his sister, who should be overjoyed and throughout over the moon about this. Oh, she's not. Now, remember, Anna, one reason they didn't want to tell Britt is they felt the timing was so suspicious with the two of them showing up at the same time, right? Now, if they would watch Britt's mannerisms around Nathan, they would feel like, okay, now we know something's up. Because she is not acting like she's a sister whose beloved brother has returned. Even though it took a couple of years as Nathan being Nathan on GH before it came out that Madeline wasn't his real mother, that Lisa was, right? So then Britt found out she had a brother. And then she, the way Lisa would just dote over him, Britt would get jealous. Britt was always Britt. So let's see, what else do we have? Anna talks to, she brings Carly in. And Carly's like, do I need to bring Diane in for this? She goes, I don't know, Carly, do you? I'm just going over your version of the timeline, just once again, in reference to the timeline with you and Michael. And when she said that, I thought, Carly, you know better. Bring Anna. Because she says, why would you need to talk to me again? You know I was with Jack. She goes, no, I know you were with Jack. She says, but there was a time you and Michael talked. So there's a timeline when you and Michael coincide with each other. And that's what I want to talk about. See, and at that point, Carly should have said, no, I won't be talking without my lawyer present. Especially you want to talk to me about another suspect in this case, my son. Nah, I don't feel comfortable. Carly was sure, yeah. Yeah, I talk to Michael. We talk every day. She goes, what did you talk about? She goes, I really don't recall because Michael and I talk every day. It probably was about the kids. So then she says, oh, so, you know, she goes, I'm talking to you because I know Monica's memorial service was today, and I didn't want to talk to Michael today. I felt I could get the same information from you. That didn't make an ounce of sense, chick. Because what Michael has to say about Michael has nothing to do with me. And so she says, so it appears Michael was with this Jacinda person? And Carly says, yeah, that's what he says. She says, and how do you feel about that? And Carly says, Michael is a grown man. Who he chooses to spend his time with is none of my concern. So then she says, so I figured you wouldn't be at Monica's memorial service. She goes, no. She goes, because you and Monica aren't close. She goes, me and Monica are close enough. She says, because of Michael, my son and her grandson, and because of my grandchildren and her great grandchildren. So she goes, so you're able to just go by the Quartermain's house and see your grandchildren anytime you want? She says, yeah. She goes, you could just come and go as you please. She says, I could see my grandchildren anytime I want to see them. See, that's what Anna was fishing for, to see if Carly would have access to the gun. Well, guess what? Carly would have to know where that gun collection was in that house. Carly didn't live there. Now, Willow lived there for years. She would know. And it's so interesting how Anna has just narrowed it down to Michael and Carly. Forget Willow, who isn't supposed to be in and out of that house, but would know where that gun was kept. Yes, she would. Right? So anyway, Carly left there and she went and she talked to Sunny and she goes, I feel like I may have given Anna some information that could hurt Michael. And Sunny's like, well, what is it? She goes, I don't know, Sunny. It seemed innocent with what I was saying, but she's fishing. And she goes, it's clear Michael is a main suspect. And Sunny said, probably you too, you know. And so she's looking, she goes, oh, I think I did the wrong thing. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did, Carly. And you should know better. 100% you should have known better. Now, I was thinking, Michael's obviously paying Jacinda. Hopefully, he is not paying her out of any of his bank accounts. What he needs to do is ask Jason to pay Jacinda. I'm sorry. Jason could pay anybody he wants to go out on a date with him. He could say, I just wanted somebody to talk to. I hear she's good to talk to. Yeah, I pay her. You know, because Jason doesn't need Jacinda for an alibi. But if the money was coming out of Jason's account, that would clear Michael from paying her. Because they're gonna think he's paying her to lie for him, which he is, right? But if someone else were paying her, it wouldn't look like that. That's just my thoughts on that, everybody. And then this was the unlikely conversation that I fast forwarded most of it. Sonny goes to GH and he's looking at Monica's picture. Ronnie shows up at GH. And they start talking. And she goes, did you know, or he may have said, one of them said, did you know Monica well? And Ronnie says, oh, maybe Sonny asked her, but she goes, well, you and my sister close? Because she goes, I'm Monica's sister, Ronnie Bard. And he goes, really? I didn't know Monica had a sister. She goes, yeah, most people don't. Very few do. And so she goes, well, you and my sister close? He goes, in some ways. So my sister was very fond of you. No, no, that she wasn't. You know, he goes, but my adopted son is Monica's grandson. She goes, oh, Michael. She says, I really wanted to meet him. She said the whole story about them being estranged growing up, but they recently in the last year, a little more than a year, connected, and she wrote a lot about Michael, and she wanted to meet Michael. And she says, but I was there paying my respects at the crypt, and I ran into Tracy. And Sonny says, yeah, Tracy can be, I forget the word he used for her, right? So yeah, and she goes, so she would not let me see anybody, She made me leave. And Sunny says, yeah, she could be very territorial, but Tracy is that way when she feels she's protecting the people she loves, right? Now, tell me why the next scene they're showing is Sunny walking her up to Bobby's and saying this is a iconic place. They've got really good food. It's like the heart of Port Charles. So they go in and they sit down. Now, this is a complete stranger. We see each other in Monica's photo, but now I'm taking you to Bobby's, right? And they sit down and she goes, I was a waitress for many, many years. She says, and this place, I'm telling you, all the water glasses are filled and the place is so impeccably clean. And you could smell the food from the kitchen. It smells good. She goes, the owner of this establishment is running a really good little restaurant here. And Sonny says, well, tell her you said that. And she goes, you know the owner? He goes, yeah, she's my ex-wife. And she goes, oh, he goes, and I suggest you try the BLT. It's famous. So anyway, they show a scene of them again. Their plates are, they finished eating. And of course, she loved the BLT. She's going to end up being Janet from another planet behind them BLTs, but that's another story. So anyway, they do minor chit chat. I could care less what they were talking about. I'm like, this is the whole waste of time. Sunny, So it shows Ronnie back at the, looked like it was a MetroCourt room. She was sitting down, she was tired, and her phone rang. And she goes, this is Ronnie Bard. And the person was giving her instructions. And she goes, oh, I'll be there. And I thought, okay, you are invited, to the reading of the will, which is tomorrow, Monday or Tuesday, whenever they decide to get back to it. And now we know she's going to be there. So somebody let it leak in comment corner. I'm not going to say, because guess what? That might not be true, but we think it's true. There's going to be some tomfoolery with the will in the house, but it's going to be temporary. One thing I did read, Erica Slasic's stint on General Hospital is only going to be about 3 weeks. Short contract. Now, 3 weeks of week taping time could end up being probably 5 weeks of viewing time because they could tape a bunch of her scenes, but you know how they cut 10 minutes into here, 5 minutes. It could be spread out way more than just the 3 weeks of taping her scenes because they're going to cut them in and out of other stories that are going on, right? But thank God she's not going to be a long character on this show. So we know whatever is going to happen, and it's probably going to be 6 to 8 weeks because it's going to take us through November sweeps. November sweeps are next month. So whatever's going to happen with the property, the upheaval is going to be this month. The resolution is going to be in November. And probably also the custody hearing will be in November as well for November sweeps. So I'm looking forward to that, everybody. I'm not going to do Comic Corner. I'm going to pick up on Comic Corner on Monday so we can all get caught up to, the episode that we're on today. But it felt good to be able to watch my General Hospital again. Boy, did I miss her. So I'll be back on Monday with another daily recap of General Hospital.